All right, everybody. That way is due east. That way is pretty much due west. Now, we were all taught in school that the sun comes up in the east and goes down in the west. And yes, this is pretty much true. However, this is February. This morning, because it's in February, the sun came up over there. And it's tracking across the sky up there, kind of towards the south. And it's going to set over there. Not over there, but over there today. Now, of course, as we get closer and closer to the spring equinox, the sun will slowly begin to track more this way, where eventually, when we reach the spring equinox, the sun will come up directly east and go directly overhead. I'm hoping I don't fall here and lose my balance, but that's when it will go directly overhead. And then after we pass the spring equinox, of course, the sun will slowly, as it still comes up in the east and goes down in the west, but it will slowly start tracking back a little bit towards the southern sky until we reach the winter equinox. And all these things are things that we need to consider when we're working with solar, among a whole bunch of other things as well. Isn't that right, dear?
Yes.
And we're going to talk about that here shortly.
Yes.
Hey everybody, Bill and Deb.
Hi there. Welcome to Topic Tuesday.
Yeah, Topic Tuesday. First off, you know, it's a pretty morning this morning. Yesterday was kind of yucky. Today is Tuesday. What is the date today?
6th, February 6th.
Okay, I think you're right.
I
Tuesday.
really don't know.
I think it's close. But yesterday it was cloudy and everything. It just wasn't, you know. And
At least we have blue sky and sunshine today.
Yeah.
Yesterday
Wind's blowing
was
a little
yuck.
bit, but it's going to get up into the mid-60s today. But we'll take it. We'll take it. Definitely, won't we, dear?
Yeah, I'm ready for my Florida sunshine.
So anyway, what we might talk about, thought we might talk about today is solar setup. And first, let's get this out of the way right quick. We are not experts.
No.
No. We have a fairly basic system compared to several others that, we've done walkthrough videos on some that have very elaborate systems.
Yes.
And ours is a nice system, and it's adequate for for what we use it for, but, it's not the most powerful thing in the world. But there are things that we have learned, and I know we get this question a lot. A lot of people, they always want to ask us, how long can we go?
Yes, that's probably number one. Do you have solar? Number two, how long can you go unplugged?
How long can you go unplugged? Yeah. And it's, the short answer is, if we're very, very careful and we start off with a full charge, we can go one day, all night, and late into the afternoon the next day.
Yes.
Yeah.
As long as we're very careful what we use.
As long as we're very, very careful.
And remember, we're total electric.
Right. So, yeah. And now what we have with our system here, we have a fairly small battery bank compared to many. Ours is a 24-volt system, so keep that in mind. Well, Delilah knows there's a camera out, so she's trying to get into the picture here. But anyway, ours is a 24-volt system, but remember, and I've said this many, many times before, and it took me a while to grasp this very basic concept, but watts is watts is watts, and everybody talks about watts, and basically watts is the volts times the amps equals the watts. Well, we're a 24-volt system. It's a 270 amp-hour system at 24 volts, which would be equal to a 540 amp-hour system at 12 volts. Because in the end, if you multiply them out, you're going to come out with watts is watts. There's no difference. But now let's go ahead and move on beyond that a little bit here. On top of our trailer, we have 800 watts on top. We have 4 200-watt panels. Now, you know, a person might think, okay, well, you got 800 watts. Well, we have, let's put it this way, and this is the way it works with anybody's setup. We have panels that are capable of producing 800 watts in perfect conditions.
Yeah, the perfect conditions is what so much is left out in the description.
Right. So those are things that you have to keep in mind. Now, what we would refer to as perfect conditions is if the sun is fairly perpendicular to the face of the panel.
And if the panels are clean.
Right, yeah, there's a lot of things, yeah, you got to clean them periodically,
no shade.
That's for sure. But when you reach that, maximum yield, you know, basically that means that, you know, you pretty much have to have your panels exactly perpendicular to the sun. So it stands to reason that in this time of the year, you know, like I just showed you, talked about there in the very beginning of the video, the sun is not going directly overhead, and our panels are flat to the trailer. You know, they're not adjustable. And even if they were adjustable, that would help, but only to a point.
It wouldn't help in this situation where we're parked right now.
Yeah. In fact, let's talk about that right quick. We're kind of sort of parked in the shade. We are getting a little bit of sun, but I went ahead and did a check a moment ago, and I might have to put my glasses on so I can see. But about 5-10 minutes ago I checked, and we were pulling in off of the panels, and this is, you know, 800 watts of solar. 800 watts of solar. We were pulling in a whopping 55 watts. By the time it does its processing through the charge controller and everything, we're pumping into the battery bank 1.8 amps. 1.8 amps into the battery bank. Now, right now we're plugged in. We're not consuming that much because the only thing that the battery bank is running right now is the lights, because we don't have the ceiling fan on. We aren't running any of the pumps right now.
No.
So the only thing that we have running right now that's drawing off of the battery bank, because we're plugged in, is just the lights. And so we're actually out of that, we're actually probably pumping in close to 1 full amp into the battery bank, you know. Now, here again, we're kind of sort of parked in the shade, as you can see in the photo. And, you know, we're also not getting what little sun is hitting the panels up there. You know, it's at an angle. It's far, far from the optimum angle.
The only time we've gotten a really good charge is when we were driving down the interstate.
Exactly.
Because we're out in full sun then.
Right. And when we were driving down the interstate where we're out in full sun, that, like Deb just said, that's when we get our best yield.
Yes.
Typically speaking, when we're parked out where we have pretty good sun exposure, typically speaking, we're going to see maybe a little over 400 watts coming in off of our 800 watt system.
This time of year. This
time of the year.
Right.
That is correct. Now, if, you know, we could angle the panels so they would have a more perpendicular view to the sun, and if we could orient the trailer and literally kind of track the trailer with the sun as it passed over the sky, then that would help immensely. But, you know, you'd have to be able to, you know, be able to move the trailer and track it with the sun as it tracked across the sky. And to give you a good example of this, and I wish I tried to find some photos of that when we did that video, it's been over a year, but we also have two 200 watt panels on top of the van, and I love those panels. Those panels came from Bouge RV, and they too are 200 watt panels, but they're what they call their Model 9 BBs, which means there's 9 bus bars per cell rather than the traditional 5 bus bars per cell, which also means that they are physically smaller. Length and width is physically smaller, and they, you know, to produce the same amount as a standard 200 watt panel. That is typically 5 bus bars per cell. So When we did this test, we took the panels down, and this also was in the wintertime, or the fall.
It was fall.
Late fall. Yeah, I remember that. We took the panels down and had them ground-based. And I was able to, and I had a clean shot to the sun with these panels, the panels that are on top of the van now. Had a clean shot while they were ground-based to the sun. And I was able to orient them so that so that they were perpendicular to the sun, which you have to factor in the angle of the sun coming in. You know, if the angle of the sun is coming in like this, you have to have the panel, you know, at the proper angle and perpendicular to the sun. Now here's the thing about that though. That perfect setup lasts for maybe 15-20 minutes because the sun's going to continue tracking.
The sun continues to move.
But now, when I did that and I looked at what they were producing, I was actually able to pull 420 watts out of the two panels that theoretically should have only pulled 400 watts. But in order to keep that going like it did as the sun tracked across the sky, I would literally walk out to the panels about every 30 minutes or so, and I would move them. I would physically move them and track with the sun as we went, you know, as the day went on. And that's when we got maximum yield. And then, of course, when the sun started to set in the west, which was really not totally west, it was kind of a south-west-west, you know. Even then, when I really tried to get it angled just so, we still lost power. But those are things you have to think about. So if you have, people will say, well, I got 2,000 watts of solar on top of the trailer. Well, in all honesty, what they have are panels that are capable of yielding 2,000 watts when the conditions are perfect. How else can I say this?
That's the only way I know to say it.
That's the only way that we know to say it. So consequently, because of that, you have to always keep in mind that you're not going, even though you have 2,000 watts of solar on top or whatever you have, doesn't mean that you're always going to be pulling in that much. And if you are set up with a near perfect situation, even then, as the sun tracks across the sky.
Well, anybody that has sunbathed back in their youth knows that the proper time to sunbathe is between 10 and 2.
True, that is correct.
I mean, everybody knows.
I never sunbathed because
all us women know that.
Because, yeah.
Because otherwise, you're not getting the proper rays. I know you just lost it, did you?
There's something I'm wanting to say right now. But
just continue on.
I enjoyed the sunbathing thing, but from a different.
This is not that type of topic.
Okay. Well, then you brought it up.
I was just meaning that's the peak sun time, 10 to 2. 10 to 2.
Okay. Oh boy.
Men.
That brings back memories. Yeah, okay, enough of that. Anyway, so those are things you got to think about. You know, it's just basic common things. So in other words, when someone says that I have 2,000 watts of solar on top, or 3,000, or whatever number they give you, that truly means that they have panels that are capable of producing that much. And then of course the size of the battery bank makes a difference, and the size, you know, and just try to think of your battery bank as like a gas tank on a vehicle. You know, the bigger the battery bank,
the more
energy it'll store.
Right.
You know, which is what gets you through the night, which is what gets you through the days when you do not have good sunny conditions. All those things that come into play. So of course, the larger battery bank you can have, the better. But the thing about it is, of all these people that we have done these walkthrough videos on, every single one of them that I can think of that depended on their solar a lot more than normal. We're plugged in most of the time. We don't really depend on our solar.
It's nice when the electricity goes off for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Or
all we got to do is just flip on the inverter, and we got power.
And then we're back in business.
And we've had that happen 2 or 3 times, you know.
And that's just this last winter.
Yeah, our neighbors are all without power, and we just flip on our inverter, and we got power.
And we can still run our mini split. We can still make our coffee. And
yeah, we can still do everything.
We're good.
But practically every single one of these folks that we have done walkthrough videos on that have these very elaborate solar systems and battery banks, they all have one thing: a backup generator.
You have to.
Yeah, they have a backup
we
generator.
can't control
No.
the sun. We can't control the weather. We
Yeah.
can't control these other things. And, you know, unless you just want to be without power,
Yeah.
you got to have a generator.
Right. So, you know, yeah, would we like to have more solar panels on top? Oh, yeah. We would love to have 2,000 watts of solar on top, but we would go in knowing, especially if we were going to make them stationary, where we would not be able to tilt them at a more advantageous angle towards the sun, we would go in knowing that just because they're capable of producing 2,000 watts when the conditions are perfect, conditions are very seldom going to be perfect.
And
when
then, of
they
course,
are
you've got to
perfect,
have
it's
a
gonna be a
battery
short
bank.
period of time.
That-
Yeah.
I mean, and we have built ours with that in mind,
Right.
that eventually, maybe someday,
Exactly.
we would be able to have a bigger battery bank.
Right. So, you know, and without going into getting real deep, there are things that we could do that would help our system now. For one thing, our 4 panels on top is all controlled by one charge controller. And what happens there when you just have one charge controller controlling these 4 panels, if you get a little bit of shade just on one panel, it actually affects the yield of the other 3 as well. So in retrospect, and we may do that later, we may at least go ahead and separate them out where we have 2 charge controllers, one for the front set of panels and one for the back set of panels. And that would help us get, you know, gain a little bit more yield, because then if we had the front set of panels shaded for any reason but still had decent sun on the back ones are going to, you know, go ahead and produce more yield, and we're not going to lose as much by doing that. So those are little things. Of course, the real experts, there are plenty of experts out there
Yes.
on YouTube that you can go to. We would just wanted to visit with you about the basic things about solar and things to keep in the back of your mind.
No one
You know.
really, unless you actually do the study, I mean, do it, experiment with it like we did with ours. You don't realize that how much the coffee pot uses, how much the crock pot
Right.
uses, how much the griddle uses. You don't realize how much power these things use
Yeah.
just to maintain what we
Yeah.
consider a normal
Now
lifestyle.
let's touch on that a little bit. And here again, we are total electric.
Right.
And if you really want to be conservative, now our mini split, believe it or not, is probably one of the most efficient appliances we have
Yeah,
on the
probably.
trailer. The next thing I would say would be our induction cooktop.
Yes.
That's very, very efficient. And the reason why the induction cooktop is so efficient, it doesn't use any power till you set the pan on it.
Right.
And the second you pull the pan off,
And
it
you
stops
can, you
using
can
power.
control the temperature.
Exactly.
Whereas I was shocked that my crock pot is a big a power hog as my oven.
Yeah.
You know, I was
It is.
shocked.
It is.
And actually, the microwave, of course, it's a power hog, but it's a short-term power
Right.
hog.
When
Yep.
we are on strictly solar, we avoid, of course, we actually avoid using the crock pot.
Nope.
We don't use it because it chews up power all during the day. You know, when it kicks on, kicks off, kicks on, kicks off. The same thing with the water heater. We don't run the water heater all day long. We only turn it on long enough to take showers, and then we turn it back off. Now the mini split, if it's a hot day, we're going to let it run. But really and truthfully, it doesn't pull all that much compared to these other appliances. The refrigerator, of course, has to run all the time, but it really doesn't pull all that much. The big power hogs, of course, are the water heater. And fortunately, ours is an electric water heater, and it's a 7-gallon unit. But we can turn it on of a morning, and in 15 minutes, we got plenty of hot water for both of us to shower, and we do shower every day. Then we turn it back off, and then it quits using that power. We don't use the toaster oven.
No, or the microwave, actually.
Well, but we have been known to use the microwave, but keep in mind, the toaster oven uses power for this long. The microwave uses power for that long. you
Right.
know. So there's a difference there on that. But we have been known to use the microwave now and then. Of course, during that time when you're really, really wanting to conserve, you could, pull out your propane grill and
Yes.
do your cooking outside.
You could do that.
Now, if it's in the summertime and you say, well, I'm going to have a propane stove and a propane oven in my trailer, well,
That's just asking for trouble.
yeah, well,
Well, it produces so much heat.
exactly.
I've been in
That's the whole
people's
point.
trailers that are using their propane
So-
cooktops, and it's like, oh my gosh.
So when you're using the propane inside the trailer, it's going to produce more heat, which in turn makes your mini split work harder. So you, in all honesty, we don't feel like you've gained anything, when it comes to that.
Cooking outside with propane is an option.
Oh yeah, which is exactly. And if we got really, really serious about surviving on our solar that we have now, that's probably one of the first things that we would do. We would probably try to do most of our cooking outside. I forgot who makes it. A Coleman. They make a really cool little coffee pot that looks like a regular coffee pot, but it uses the little 1 pound propane canisters in it. We'd probably get one of them because we are not going to start our day without coffee.
Well, we can't.
No, impossible. And, and then of course there's propane grills and griddles and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, we would make the necessary changes where we wouldn't produce any extra heat inside the trailer, nor would we be utilizing those particular appliances that would draw more power. We still have to use the water heater because that's just the way our setup. Well, no, we could go without showering or take a cold shower.
In the middle of the summer, you might want to.
And that's true. I might.
No, you wouldn't.
So anyway, those are things to think about. If you think that you can go out and go out on a hunt, go out in the hunting woods, and if you got big solar panels and you got this and that, and think that you can just let that trailer sit there while you're out hunting and go hunting for 3 or 4 days and let the thing run, everything run around the clock, and still have plenty of power, you're going to find that you probably needed a backup generator. That's just all there is to it. How else can we say that? Because all these other conditions have to be just right too. You have to have a really, really good exposure to the sun. And it can't be a glancing blow to get the maximum yield. You have to have it where your panels are aimed right at the sun and exactly at a perpendicular angle to the sun. That's all there is to it in order to get that maximum yield. So I think the most we've ever gotten out of these panels on top of the trailer, and that's of course is when we're going down the road, was somewhere in the 600 watt range peak coming in while we were driving. Because we can look at the history. I can go in and look at the history and see what we did. But here again, that peak was only for just a few minutes. It didn't last the whole trip. It just shows when it peaked, when how much wattage we were making at peak. So, but generally speaking, when we're just sitting, and if we have decent exposure, but yet the sun is still at a glancing blow, we're usually averaging. We're doing good if we hit 400 watts off of the panels on top. Anything else you want to add to that?
Well, you're going to have the question.
Okay.
Due to that, what we were just saying, if you had it to do over again, would you do solar?
If I had it to do over again, probably knowing what I know now, and I would probably, I might even go with less panels on top and have more ground-based panels, especially if we were going to depend mostly on solar and do a whole bunch more boondocking and stuff like that. Then I would also have to have a way to haul these panels in order to set them up, and probably what I would do, depending on where we were parked in our boondocking situation, especially if we were going to be there for, it's not worth going through all the hassle to set all that up if we're only going to be there for just a few days. If we're going to be there for 2 weeks, it's worth going through the hassle. But in the boondocking situation, I would try to orient the trailer in such a way so I could set up my ground-based panels in kind of a half-moon setup, so that, the first set of panels would catch the sun at this point, the next set of panels would catch the sun at this point, so on and so forth. And then you would still, almost on a daily or bi-daily basis, adjust the angle a little bit, because the sun is going to move a little bit from day to day. It's just, it's a very, very small amount, But it does. It does move a little bit because, you know, we're on a big giant spaceship running around the sun right now. Is what we're doing. Anyway, probably
That's just our
confused.
experience.
Yeah.
You know, we do like the fact that we do have a battery bank, and then because we have used it
Yes.
when we least expected
Oh, yeah.
to use it.
Absolutely.
So it has come in very handy. We've learned a lot since we got them. We knew nothing before we started. We depended a lot upon our friends for advice and information.
Marvin and Mary was our biggest.
Yes.
If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have what we have.
No,
That's all there is to
because we had no clue.
Right.
Bill still, of course, knows much more about it than I do because I want it to work.
And I still call Marvin or text Marvin from time to time and say,
Say,
hey, what do
okay,
you
what's
think
it
about
doing
this?
this?
You know, what do you think about that? And
But
Marvin sets me straight. But
Yes.
Anyway, but yeah, those are the things. The biggest thing, in my opinion, is you don't be thinking because you got 2,000 watts of solar on top or 3,000 or whatever that you're going to always be pulling in 3,000 watts.
that's the main thing. That's the main
Ain't gonna
thing.
happen.
That is something that
Ain't
the
gonna happen.
manufacturers of these products fail to inform you of.
Well, they do,
Yeah.
kind of, sort of.
Whatever.
But yeah, when the situation is perfect, you will see maximum yield, but it's not going to be all day long.
No,
That's all there is to it.
it's just not.
All right. Anything else?
No, I think we've probably upset enough people.
Sorry.
I think we probably have.
Do I think solar is the way to go for people that like the boondock? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And
And there's certain parts of the country that it works much better than
oh
others.
yeah. Us being in the eastern half of the country, you know, you have a lot more obstructions. You know.
Right. Out west, you got more
Right.
sun.
Yeah, you go out there in the
So.
desert, and that's a whole other story out
Yes.
there. But still, you still have to have
You still
that
should
optimum
have it.
angle to the sun.
And you still should have a backup plan.
Yeah. Yep.
Always.
Yep. All right, we're going to let you go. This
Yes.
is Bill and Deb with I Ride Tiny House Adventures. I wish you wouldn't have mentioned the sunbathing thing.
Oh, good Lord. We're not camping.
We're going to go sunbathing.
No, we're not. It's too dang cold.
We're not camping, right?
You're right.
What are we doing?
We are living.
Y'all get out there and do some living. I keep looking at the monitor. Y'all get out there and do some living. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.